this has been the day that we have been waiting for, right? Post rules, there is some clarity, and we're all looking for how this privacy era is gonna come. And we are really moving forward from a kind of privacy which is like the stone age of privacy is where we are in today, and from the stone age we are getting into the AI age, and there are new kinds of risks which are coming across the ecosystem while taking, sharing, processing data across the ecosystem. You would have listened to Prime Minister Modi in Paris, where both the European organizations and the US were in sync with Prime Minister, because what we have is a techno-legal regulation which is grounded on technology and it is grounded on solutions. And the solution-centric nature is what makes India very different and can make India at the top of the world in this new era which is coming. We Private Sapiens started 5 years ago in this journey, and the name starts with privacy, and the idea is that privacy for sapiens. That's Private Sapien, and without privacy we will become algo slaves going forward, because today everything starting from going for lunch to going to a place, we are depending on an algorithm to guide us, and it is knowing our data, it is knowing more about us than we ourselves know. That's the fundamental problem. So without solving the privacy, we will lose our consciousness will become substandard. That is the problem we are trying to solve, and looking forward to all your support in this. So was there a first slide? Yeah. So we have been around for 5 years now. We have won multiple awards across the globe. So the agenda for this workshop is going to be, we will start with the regulatory requirement. We are an end-to-end stack platform, and it's a very revolutionary platform, first of its kind in the world, because of different kinds of components which are present in that, and it's a very fresh approach to privacy, a very new approach which is very foundational in nature. So we will first look at regulatory requirements in a very different way. One of our customers asked, can you explain the whole of the draft and the rule in one slide? Okay, because it is very complex. It's a lot of legal jargons, or sometimes it is very simple to say, but it becomes very complex when you try to comprehend, right? Can you put it in a single slide for us to understand, right? So we have crafted a slide which integrates act, rule. Basically, it provides a whole framework through which you can look at privacy for DPDP, act and rules together. So we'll look at that and then quickly go into the platform. We call it as PERAI. So it is inspired by a Tamil word. Tamil is one of the oldest languages, the oldest living language. So the counterbalance for AI, if AI is the sun, you need something like a moon to counterbalance to it. So PERAI is basically in Tamil called the form of a moon, right? So we are building a platform which will be the counterbalance for the power of AI, so that AI is used the right way, else it will go in a different direction. So what are the controls for you so that you can control AI? You can control data that flows into AI. You can control the way AI is used for the good of the planet and for humanity. Is how the name of the platform comes from. Then we'll go into privacy and governance, and it's a very integrated approach. What I mean by integrated approach is everything from consent to notice to privacy threat modeling. It's a very new way of doing data classification, because if you look at the regulation, we'll go into the details, but it's a new, very revolutionary way of classification called privacy threat modeling. It's like security threat modeling or VAPT. What is the equivalent of it in privacy? How can you quantify the risk, right? Followed by, how do you do an augmented DPIA? DPIA we all do, right? But how do you do an augmented DPIA so that it is intelligent in nature, so that a consultant or a employee or a DPO need not go through volumes and volumes of form work? How can you make it much more intelligent? Followed by the crux of a lot of these, which is privacy enhancing technologies, which unlock your data, enable you to use data for multiple purposes, which are exempted by not just DPDP but GDPR, CPRA, which is the future of data governance. From there, we will go into, we have built a strategic small language model which will govern large language models. We'll get into that. And then privacy as a profit center, right? We have been looking at privacy and security as a cost center for complaints, which is not bad, but privacy because privacy has an advantage than security. Security is data at rest and transit, while privacy is data in use. So when you are already in use, you can create new values, new business models out of it, which is very foundational for privacy technologies. So that's very foundational. So how can privacy be a profit center? How can you pitch to a CFO? How can you pitch to a CEO is what we will cover there. And then we will have a quick expert talk, and we have a mega announcement for the audience today. So please don't miss out on that. So from a very high perspective, what should you focus on? What is your objective as a DPO, right? It's like you go to your question paper, right? You start with 10 mark question because you don't want to lose out on time on 2 more questions, right? That's how we typically write exams, like so that you cover all fundamental questions. So the 10 mark question in the DPDP Act is what? Is for the technical safeguards, which is the 250 crore mitigation, right? We leave that, we start from there. That will take lower time, but this is where the primary risk is. If we do this, you are unlocked significantly. So how do you do this? Followed by breach notification. If you do this, you need not even do breach notification in a lot of scenarios. The data is protected by default, design and default, right? Then risk assessment and DPIA followed by GRC. GRC is also very important, right? But you will have to do it the right way. And you will have to prioritize and invest the right way and align your priorities to the regulatory recommendations which DPDP rules and act have put in based on the priority of the penalties. That is very important. Else you will end up spending in a way which will not meet your obligatory requirements. Now, we have some lighter slides. We don't want to keep it really, really difficult all the time. So, the 2016 way of privacy was very different, and 2025 way of privacy is very, very different. So, what is the difference? Right? So when let's say it's a data fruit, right? There is risk in data. All data is not good. Data can be toxic. So how do you mitigate the risk in data so that we can be more evolved in consuming data, sharing data, processing data, because the obligation is very, very high, right? Even unauthorized processing is like even accidentally misprocessing it is considered as breach, which you will have to notify. So you have to ensure, understand, mitigate the risk in the data, ensure that the data is in line with the regulatory obligations, right kind of technical safeguards are in place before you process the data. That is very fundamental. So that's the difference. Now this is the one slider I spoke about. It's very, very critical. This is a one slider which gives you perspective end to end what and all you should do, right? Starting from data principle, you have notice. Your application will give notice, collect consent. You understand the risk in the data that you are collecting and then do DPIA, and whenever user wants, you do a DPR, right? And you have to do it in a way which is provable, verifiable, limited and withdrawable. You have to consider all these aspects, and that's when the data starts flowing into the system. Now the data is an identifiable data, right? When you are actually receiving it from the user, then you will have to put technical safeguards, which is rule 61A, right? You will have to put technical safeguards, and then it becomes relatable data, which is, for example, your encryption, pseudonymization, masking, obfuscation, which are still relatable. These are still under the purview of personal data. It has not become non-personal data yet, right? So even if it is an encrypted data that got breached, it is considered personal data breach, because tomorrow somebody may find the key and then decrypt the data. It will become a problem. Right? So in any of these scenarios, so you do technical safeguards and then use for limited processing. And if there is any unauthorized processing in the process, it is considered as a breach. And if you are keeping the data wherever there is limited, whenever it is personal data, you will have to ensure that it is limited in terms of storage and processing. So you will have to delete it as soon as the processing is done or the purpose of processing is done. So that is deletion. Now, these two parts, the first section and the second section, are under the DPDP Act's purview. Now they have penalties associated with it. These are penalty of 50 crore and up to 150 crore. And this segment has a penalty of up to 250 crore. Now, if the data becomes non-personal in nature or unrelatable in nature, that's where PET comes in. Not just in India, but across the globe. Even GDPR, the same thing applies. So when that happens, there are separate clauses which have the grounding. For example, the very definition of personal data, which is 2T, right? Then 6D, which is 61D is for continuous processing, and it has to be beyond CAA compromise. This is very, very important to understand. They are mentioned in 61D for continuous processing, which is, for example, analytics is a continuous processing. For continuous processing, it has to be beyond CAA compromise, which means confidentiality, integrity, availability. Beyond that compromise, how do you do? That is where PET comes in. So it is grounded in that, and then 12C, which is significant data fiduciary algorithm usage, once again 12C, and then 17.2B, and then 15, which is basically your exemption clause for statistical research and archiving. But still, it has not to be, should not be relatable back to individual. How do you achieve it? So when we just look at this combination, we were amazed. We realized it after 4 days after the rule, right? We were reading on a daily basis, but after 4 days, we are realizing that it is going from 61D to 15 to schedule 2F, then coming back to 61D and 12C. It's just like really amazing. So then it becomes unrelatable, then it can go to continuous processing, right? Now, what is a platform? So the platform is a fully integrated platform which covers your requirements end to end, starting from the PMS part, which is privacy management system, where we have consent. Then it includes consent, not just consent, but it has a cryptographically signable consent, verifiable consent. We look at those attributes. Then it goes to PTM, which is privacy threat modeling, which have connectors, and all these are deployable in your ecosystem. There's a Kubernetes based solution which can be deployed in your ecosystem. It is not SaaS, so it can have connectors which can connect your databases, connect the risk, identify the risk, quantify the risk, and then give it to PET. PET will do privacy enhancing technology. We'll look at some examples, and then it goes to privacy preserved machine learning, where it enables models to learn with a privacy preserved way, and then it goes to responsible AI during inference. So once the model is built, you have set of products. So each of them are categorized bucket into specific areas, and these products are available. I would request you to, we have a booth here. I request you to walk in there and then have a demo. We'll go through some of the product solutions here. So these are the 4 different categories: privacy management, PTM, PET, and responsible AI. We have a bunch of products in this. So the way you look at it is data. What is the risk spectrum in data? So from PII to synthetic data, privacy preserved data, it is a risk spectrum. That's what you see in red, right? So how do you make the data into identifiable and relatable? What products can help in it? And these are limited. The ones which are here on the left are basically limited in time, purpose, and storage. The one on the right are basically for continuous processing, research, algorithmic, and beyond, CAA compromise. So the way it flows in your system is when you collect the data, it comes via consent, then it goes to the platform, let's say your servers. Privacy X-ray and Nebula will connect to the servers, collect the data, understand the risk in data, quantify the risk in data. Then DPO can say that this data flow, let us say you are giving data to analysts, right? This data you will have to anonymize and give, or you will have to pseudonymize or synthesize. Crypto or encrypt the PIA and give it to a downstream party. He has to decrypt it only when it is necessary, right? So this decision should be taken by DPO. What is the level of risk acceptable downstream? Based on that, the data will flow. Corresponding product would be chosen and it will flow. Similarly, then comes the AI part. Now you are taking this data and feeding it to a model for model training, let us say, or prompts. Let us say your organization, you have people using OpenAI. Now the problem is they may put a document without even knowing it directly into OpenAI, and it may go to OpenAI. It may be under NDA. It may have health information which may go outside the organization to OpenAI, which are different kinds of risks. So how do you understand the risk at the data level and then send only pseudonymous information to downstream models and protect privacy of the data in the process, and the data will get decrypted when it comes back. So that spectrum is what is covered. So we'll go step by step. The first step is consent, right? So let's see how we do provable, verifiable, limited, withdrawable consent. So when your user connects to your app, right? He's given a notice and then he gives a consent. Now we do a digital signature of it and store it in your ecosystem. That goes to the consent collector, which is prescriptron. It is the consentium part, and then it goes to downstream ecosystems. For example, privacy threat modeling, which is required for your DPO. So the DPO will say that, okay, I have to give data to this business analyst, let us say, in a healthcare data scenario or banking scenario, right? You have to give it to a business analyst. He has to go through credit card transactions and then say that, okay, this is a kind of NPA from this geography, from this zip code. These are the kinds of loan that we can give. So this is required for the business analyst. Now he cannot say, DPO cannot say no for this because there is no consent, right? He cannot say no. So how do you handle the situation? So you understand the risk in data, and then you do augmented DPIA, because once you do the DPIA, it has to be tied to a mathematically provable risk context. If you do it without it, you are taking all the burden on your head without even understanding the risk. So how do you understand the risk? For example, there can be different kinds of attacks on data. For example, singling out attack, linkage attack, inference attack, outlier attack, and these are beyond PII, not just PII, right? So you have to identify things beyond PII. How do you identify it? So that's where PTM comes, and that output flows to augmented DPIA. And the DPO looks at it and then chooses the kind of flow. If there is consent, his flow will go into ROPA and the data will go to downstream party. If it is unconsented, then he can use privacy enhancing technologies and unlock data and share it with downstream parties. So this is a sample of, putting out a notice, and then you will get an email, or you can have different kinds of notifications where there will be a digital signature available with the user, and he can actually go to a portal where he can verify his consent, put his signature, and see if it is verified. Only whatever he consented is what is there, or if it has changed, and it is verifiable in the court of law because it is a digital signature. It also enables in ROPA, based on DPIA, it automatically gives you a plot saying where the data is going, which and all teams are owning the data. Because tomorrow, if there is a deletion request, then you have to go to these teams asking them to delete the data, right? Then let us say you have deleted the consent. So earlier it was sales, marketing and customer service. Now sales and marketing, the user has removed consent. In which case, user will receive a message, he can go and verify. Now in the verification successful part, you can see it is only customer success, the other two have been removed. Now when you look at the ROPA will say that, okay, as part of the DPIA, sales and marketing purposes have been withdrawn. Earlier it was in green, now it is in red. It will trigger an email to corresponding downstream parties who have received data for sales and marketing. They have to delete the data, update the proof in that, so that as a DPO you can approve, and then this email will go to the user saying that the data has been deleted for these purposes, which you withdrew. So it's a revolutionary, because we are integrating it end to end. It is creating really futuristic solutions and making it very simple for you to do things end to end, integrated at the data level. Now what is PTM? PTM is privacy threat modeling. We do attack simulations on data, try to understand the risk in data, thus you can quantify the data better. Now when you quantify the risk better, then remediation is easy. For example, let's say you go to a doctor checks your temperature with a thermometer. Then it becomes easy to say, okay, you have a fever 99 degrees, 100 degree or 105 degree. Accordingly, he can recommend medication. Similarly, as a DPO, once you know the risk, you can make recommendations easily. Once it is quantifiable, it becomes easy for you to make recommendations. That is the power of PTM. It also gives you technical recommendations on top of it, and it also provides you how can you unlock the data, what are the regulatory obligations, maps it to a class level and gives you recommendation. Now, this is like how we are doing PTM today. We are like manually doing it. We don't know, we can't see viruses like that. We can't see what is a risk. But what PTM does is gives you something like a microscope with which you can identify the risk in the data and enables you to understand the risk. So it gives you a risk score and also gives you regulatory recommendation. It will give you like a score mapping back to class, subclass level. What is the issue in this specific flow? How do you unlock this? And then this is for unstructured data. Earlier was for structured data. So it will give you a risk scoring, and based on that, now this risk can be integrated into your DPIA, which is very fantastic, because till now the risk part was different, classification was different, DPIA was different, but now they are all integrated. right? You customer asked for a data flow, you have taken the data flow, looked at the data, understood the risk in the data, then that report, it's like X-ray report coming to a doctor and doctor recommending a medication, right? So the report is attached, your DPIA is attached, and on top of it, you give your recommendation, right? So department has provided the context, nature, purpose, scope, context. Then the risk assessment is done, that goes to the DPO for DPIA and approval, right? So this is how we are doing DPIAs today, filling forms and forms. But where we want to go is like A significantly accelerates your journey in terms of completing DPIA. So this captures the context. It's like a patient telling his medical history to the doctor, doctor looking at his X-ray report and then giving a recommendation, right? And everything is captured and then it is approved, and then you have it in the DPIA in terms of flow for this user's data, where and all the data has flowed. And this gives you a very good perspective, and tomorrow when somebody deletes the data or deletes consent, you can come back and delete all this and give a proof to the end user. So what is PETs? So PETs is like, the difference between security and privacy is this. Security is pre-access, right? Before you log into a system is where security comes in. But privacy comes after you log into a system, after you got access to data. Now, once somebody comes in, security cannot prevent it. That's where privacy comes in. So it is like a frosted glass where you want light to come in, because if the door is completely closed, light also cannot come in, right? But you want the light to come in, but you should not be able to see the person on the other side, right? That is PET. So it enables you to share data without violating privacy. For example, you would have seen glasses, window glasses, etc., which are frosted, translucent, which allows light to come in, but you cannot see from the other side, right? So these are different spectrums of privacy technologies. So there are anonymization technologies, and then there is differential privacy kind of technologies, federated learning. There are cryptographic techniques, which is PSI, SMPC, ZKP, and there are cryptographic sharing technologies like blockchain, right? These are the spectrum of PET technologies. We are doing certain technologies which are very critical for you. So what we have without PET today is like peekaboo privacy. It's like masking. It's like this animal asking, guess me which animal I am, right? Just because he has masked some characters. While pets are like your the invisible clock which you have, right, which makes you completely hidden, and then you can continue processing. So that's the power of pets, which comes with mathematical guarantees. So this is very critical in unlocking the data, and these are the products which help in PET. First product is Event Horizon, which is anonymization, which aggregates data to a specific level, provides you mathematical guarantees of this aggregation, and enables you to share this data. Let us say somebody is sharing data, let's say transaction data, or it can be healthcare data. These data can be shared with mathematical guarantees. This was data before and this is data now. So it has been aggregated to some level so that it cannot be re-identified back to a single user, right? Similarly, there is a product called Cryptosphere, which is for pseudonymization, where you can encrypt certain attributes while sharing data to downstream party. Only when they identify somebody, only then they should re-identify, and only then, for example, call centers. Probably you are giving data to call center, it gets breached there. But you should not directly give everything to the call center, but you should ask them, encrypt data, give it to them. They should only decrypt when it is necessary on an individual basis. This will significantly reduce your privacy risk in the process. Next is synthetic data, which is, let us say you have to give data for model training, for which customer might not have considered in the first place. So how do you give data to, let's say, application development, model training, or you're giving it to third party who wants to understand patterns in data? You need not give actual data. You can just give synthetic data which has the utility for the given purpose, right? And then differential insight. This is when you are an analyst, let's say you are a business analyst, you are trying to ask query to the database and you don't have access to the database to start with because you don't have consent. So this is a very revolutionary product where without consent, you can query databases, get answers which are privacy preserved, so that you get the answer, access to the information or the insights, privacy preserved insights without the data. And this can be very powerful for DPOs, because a lot of times DPO has to say no. if you go technically by the meaning or definition of consent. So this will significantly help you unlock data. And then the last segment is the AI segment, which is small language models which can guard large language models. So as a CIO or a DPO, you can build a journey for responsible AI, which is you have to do certain things at the data collection level, data processing level. This is once again a very important slide. If you have to define a responsible AI journey in your organization, how do you define it? What are the steps in this? What should you invest in? How do you solve the problem? Is very, very critical. So you first do data collection for model training, understand the risk in data, do DPIA, then do privacy preserved machine learning so that the model does not learn something sensitive to your organization. Then you do security around the model, because model may have sensitive information. You don't want somebody abusing and taking away sensitive information from the model. So how do you ensure that the model is protected in terms of security? How do you ensure that safety is given to the end user in terms of risks? He may put a prompt which is malicious or may not be meant for the purpose for which he is using it, right? How do you do it? And then overall governance all around AI, covering all the aspects of it. So it will give you a single pane of glass. This is directly mapped to the Gartner framework which came recently. They call it as AI Prism, where you have different aspects like data protection, data classification. PET once again is a very important central part to it, followed by runtime defense, anomaly detection, and posture management for AI governance. And all these are covered on the platform. So SLM actually sits between your user and the LLM, and it enables you to identify these issues in the prompts and information which is actually flowing to your large language model, and thus provide guarantees in mitigating the risk and unlocking data. So there is similar to data protection impact assessment in AI, you have to do AI impact assessment. So we have a product called EthicStron, which is meant for AI impact assessment, which covers different aspects based on NIST AI risk management framework. There are 8 attributes in that. We call it as PASFER. Once again, it's a very revolutionary framework, which is PASFER, which is privacy, accountability, safety, security, fairness, explainability, reliability, and sustainability. These are the 8 attributes for responsible AI. So how do you take care of these dimensions in the data and in the AI and unlock data is what this impact assessment is about. And we have a product called in AI. There is a segment called RAG, where you share data with downstream models. So what we enable is, why do you want to RAG data? Do RAGam with data. Right, so we do security and privacy with data, so that the data is annotated, identified. A small language model does this for you. So it sits in line, understands the risk in data, quantifies the risk, annotates the risk, and then encrypts the data and then sends it to a downstream large language model. And then it enables you to decrypt. When it is decrypted, locally it is decrypted so that the external large language model, let us say a Google or a Microsoft, does not get to see your information during inference. Right? It summarizes the risk as well. Let's say health risk or financial risk, identifies real time in the prompt when you are interacting with a large language model. So these are the products. Right, so it's a quite a long segment, but this covers you everything from consent, notice and consent, till responsible AI in a platform. So let's look at how can privacy be a profit center. Right, this is once again very important. Whoever is writing a memo to your management, you have to look at it. Right, so if you put a 2x2 matrix from governance to risk mitigation, and then compliance operation to new revenue generation. Right, you start with notice and consent, do DPR, DPIA, security safeguard. This is for consent. This is for compliance. These are very, very critical. But to create new revenue, if you have to go to a CFO and say that I want this project to be funded, right? How revenue can be generated? You have to enable unlocking data. That's the topic, and that's how the integration also comes in. How do you unlock data with right kind of technologies, like with PETs, for example, for querying, for sharing, for model training, and model-based inference, which can increase your top line and bottom line in your organization, enable you to create new revenue streams for your company. right? Build strategic solutions for your company, and you be that leader who brought in these technologies into your organization. So this gives you three important things, right? One is trust, which is very important for privacy. When you actually use pets, it gives you significant ability. And when trust is like iPhone, right? iPhone is primarily, fundamental use case is privacy. People don't want to use a product from some other country, right? They are worried that data will end up in China, right? So that is one of the biggest value propositions of iPhone, right? And they are advertising it big time, privacy as a value proposition, because if they put a camera resolution, tomorrow some other country, some other product will come up with a better resolution. But software aspects like privacy are very, very difficult to replicate. That can be your strategic advantage for your organization when you put it in your board as a representation, right? Similarly, efficiency, how do you improve bottom line? You do faster with augmented DPIA, you approve faster. With mitigation, you say lesser no's to business, which increases your efficiency and contributes to your bottom line and compliance. That is anyways there, right? Yeah, we have a major announcement to make, which is we are launching first of its kind certification called PCDPO, which is Privacy APN Certified DPO, which covers all these aspects that we spoke about, these revolutionary technologies that we spoke about, hands-on capability for that. We are offering a select few. When you register based on this, you would get a link. Please do sign up, whoever is interested. We are planning to conduct a 2-day workshop. 10 of them would get a free invitation for that, where it will be a detailed technical hands-on on all these aspects of privacy and responsible AI. Looking forward to see you on the other side. So yeah, looking forward to evolution and revolution in privacy. Probably will take a couple of questions. Do you have time? Yeah.
Two questions, please. We can. Quickly, 2 questions. Anyone? Shows if you can please pass on the mics. Anybody, we'll take 2 questions, please. Easier for us to spot. There's one more person here. Excuse me. Another mic here. Another mic here, if you can. So your question, please go ahead, and you can give this gentleman.
Just one question. I see there's a lots of thought process on all the things that you have shown. When it comes to the consent management, that one of the things that I have experienced, the challenges, is the visibility of the data. I see there are lots of tools when it comes to the data discovery, okay? But when it comes to the consent management, it's important to have or discover the data, even which are not tagged to, as if I take an example of a client. In last 4 and 5 years, whenever the people or the organization started working in a structured way, they have the tagging or the unique things through which you can do. But there are lots of things where the data is not tagged, is difficult to find, but even though that belongs to a customer data. That's one. How to find those tag, how your AI will help on that. That's one question. Second is, on the similar line, there are lots of, we are talking about all the soft copies of data. Now, there are legacy applications or the previous existing processes where we have used the hard copies as well. What's the capability that it has, that once it is scanned and then those data can be merged together, and then overall we get a picture from a particular customer or client perspective that this is what data we have for you in our organization, and now this is the consent that you let us know whether which one you want to keep it with us and which one you want to delete. What the thought process you have on that? Because that's the main challenge that I have seen before it comes to the consent management.
Sure. So there are 2 ways to attack this problem. One is a proactive way and other is a reactive way, right? On the proactive side of things, probably I'll start with reactive and then go to proactive. Reactive side of things is what current mindset is. Hence, we have these kind of questions because that's how the market is. Those proactive technologies are not present. Now, in the reactive side of things, you do a discovery, understand where the risk is, because you'll have to give data also, you're giving personal data only to downstream party. So all of this are risks and you'll have to mitigate. So we have tools which enable you to understand the risk. We don't work at the metadata level. We even look at the data and identify the risk, classify the risk, not just PII, but quasi-identified statistical data, not just structured, but unstructured data, not just in SaaS, but on cloud, on your on-prem as well, which enables you to understand the risk, tag the specific risk. We are not just doing at a data level, we are even doing at a prompt level, right, before it goes to a LLM. So we can identify all this and provide you a risk score before you approve. So that is possible. But tying it to consent is a very different problem. I'll break down this into two components and then we'll discuss about it. Now the other approach, which is pet-based approach, because this is, you will breach it anyways. You will give data to one person, he will give to 10 people, right? Till the time you give his personal data, even if you do discovery, right? You will do discovery in your systems that you have. If the data goes to somebody else's system, you cannot control it, right? This is where PET comes in. This is when data minimization comes in, limitation purposes come in. This is where PET come in. Where by PET, you give, let us say, synthetic data to a downstream party. Even if the data gets breached, you are not worried. So when you do cryptographically, data sharing, then even when you share this data, even if it gets breached, it is not a personal data breach in a specific aspect. If you do, specific kind of encryptions. So this is the power. So these are two technologies, proactive and reactive. But when you take consent, right? Consent is at the beginning of the flow, right? So there is this grandfathering provision which is available in 5.2 of the Act, right? Where for the data that you have, it is considered you already have consent. You have to send a notice saying that if you want to withdraw now. Else you are considering you have consent. Right? This solves half of the problem where data has gone to 1,000 places, right? The remaining part is when you are giving data, what you have to do is that government is asking or regulation is asking that you take necessary technical safeguards, reasonable security safeguards whenever possible. So you put those guardrails in place. When you collect data, you do ROPA, you do DPIA, you ensure mitigate the risk, give minimal risk data only to downstream party. If it is not consented, don't give it in the personal data form. When you do all this, you achieve these objectives without trying to do a discovery in an area where you don't have access, right? That is the best way and futuristic way of solving the problem. Hope that answered the question. Thank you.
Next question and last question, please.
Yeah, actually, like you described it very well about the risk management from security, privacy, and AI perspective.
Sir.
Instead of doing it separately, I think you ought to have integrated the manner.
Yes, sir.
Likewise, actually, I want to know the tool and the suite of the product of the entire service. Does it contain even the assessment related activities or the internally audit and internal assessment related activities?
Yes.
Because that is also very important from verification as well as internal compliance perspective.
Absolutely, sir. So we believe that risk identification should have a mathematical grounding. Because as a human being, you cannot say linkage attack is possible on a data or not. It is like saying looking at the air and then say is this COVID virus flowing here or not, right? Can you say linkage attack is present, outlier attack is present on a data? It is impossible. Probably PIA, sometimes you may be able to identify, sometimes probably you will miss. There are 400 columns in a database. You may miss out how many PIA columns were there. So that's not possible. But we try to quantify it and give it as a single risk score. And this risk score goes as an input to the audit purpose. So when you do an audit, which is a validation. So in the third box, I would have mentioned compliance and proofs, right? Mathematical proofs. So you should ask mathematical proofs when people say, okay, this was a risk. Did you validate the risk? Did you verify the risk? Did you confirm the risk? Right? This is very critical. There should be both a mathematical approach as well as on top of it, there should be a human approach. Only human approach may lead to biases, non-repeatability and a lot of other problems. So the privacy X-ray and Nebula products that we have can be purely used for audits also. You can just buy those attack models or privacy threat models and then see the data which are given are risky or not. Is it in line with the DPIA which was given by the DPO? It can be used that way as well.
Yeah, basically, we should be able to do end-to-end assessment and reporting and then closure also. Basically, it requires integration with the other existing audit tools.
Exactly.
As well as audit should use the AI tools to a large extent rather than do manually the traditional way. All the internal audit teams are moving towards AI-based audit tools. for doing the assessments in the organization.
Absolutely, sir. That's how we are also thinking.
Yeah.
Sir.
you.
So I request you to have a demo here. We have the platform available. We can take through to all of you as well that all the products are available, so you can take a demo.
Actually, I went to your booth actually, and so I'm also interested in data reduction related activities, the product features and DSCR and the data reduction related features. I think you mentioned that we will discuss it offline.